Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. It's going to go through how to answer the Living Under Nazi Rule questions ahead of that exam. So the Nazi Journey paper is broken into 4 questions. You need to answer 3 of those 4 questions. Questions 6 and 7, and then a choice of question 8 or 9. The numbers are slightly different because you'll have already completed the America paper first of all, so that'll be question 1, 2, 3 and 4, so on. So on Living Under Nazi Rule questions 6 to 9. Question 6 is a 7-mark source inference question, which you should spend 7 or 8 minutes on. Question 7 is a 15-mark source and interpretation question, asking you how useful those sources and interpretations are. And then question 8 and 9 is a choice of 2 essay questions, which you should spend about 25 minutes on for that. So question 6 then, as I say, is a source question. It will ask you what the source can tell us about a specific topic. The example I'm going to show you in a second is going to ask us what the source can tell us about wartime opposition in Nazi Germany. Ultimately, what the examiner is looking for here is for you to make an inference, so for you to work something out about the source in terms of what it can tell us about wartime opposition. The inference, the thing you can work out, can be based on the source's purpose, so what has it been made for, the production of it, so who has actually made it, when have they made it, or the receipt of the source, so actually who sees it, who reads it, who looks at it, who is the target for this source. To get up to the top band of marks, 6 or 7 out of 7, that's what they're looking for, an inference based on purpose, production or receipt. 3 to 5 marks is an inference based on content, so an inference based on what the source actually says or a specific feature in it if it's an image. 1 to 2 marks only if you just describe what you can see. So let's look at an example then. Here is a 7-mark one. I'm not going to read through it, I'm just going to go through very, very quickly. But as you can see, this is an extract from a leaflet made and distributed by the White Rose Student Group in January 1943. So question 6 then asks us, what can source A tell us about wartime opposition in Nazi Germany? So here's just a model answer for that. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. You can obviously pause the video if you want to read the whole answer. My first bit though, I've identified a feature within the source's specific quote, and I've explained that many people believe fighting was pointless. Hitler cannot win the war, only prolong it. That's an inference. That would get me up to 5 marks. To get into the top band of marks, though, what I'm looking for, or what the exam board is looking for, is for you to make a comment, as I say, on the purpose, production, or receipt of the source. So in this case, I've described the purpose of it at the bottom. I've described who the White Rose Group were, and at the bottom I've explained the purpose of the leaflet was to persuade other people of the futility of war and encourage further acts of resistance in Germany. So by explaining that purpose at the end, that's what's going to push me into the top band of marks and get me 7 marks out of 7. Okay, question 7 then is a 15-mark question. Quite a tricky question here because you've got quite a lot to do in the time that you have for it. You get sources and interpretation. So you'll get 2 sources and an interpretation. It asks you how useful the extracts are to a historian. A key thing to remember here, and sometimes people are tempted to dismiss some of them as not useful or not useful for a historian to use. All of the sources and interpretations that they put into this exam have use. There are things that we can work out and learn from them. Even if they might be limited or they might have problems with their reliability, we can still learn things from them. So never dismiss a source or interpretation as not useful. You can gain 4 marks here as well by only discussing 2 of the 3 extracts. So in terms of time, don't panic if you don't get to talk about all 3. If you do 2 well, that can get you 4 marks. Okay. So the mark scheme there shows us to get into that top band of marks, 13 to 15 out of 15. We need to explain why the content of 2 of the sources or interpretations are useful. Or actually, again here, explaining purpose of 1 of the extracts. That can also get you into the top band of marks as well. The key here is to work things out about the content, so what the sources actually say, or the purpose of them. That's what's going to get you the marks. So here's an example then. We've got a sticker advertising a seaside resort from the Strength Through Joy, and I'm going to focus on that for my little example in a second. I would also get this further source here, an order from the Gestapo, as well as an interview from a member of the Hitler Youth. So you would get 3 like that. I'm just going to focus on the first source for the purposes of my short video here. So I'm going to talk about, well, why is source B useful? It's useful because it shows us how the Nazis were wanting to boast about their policies in the 1930s that had segregated Jews from society and made them second-class citizens. The sticker is advertising here that Jews are not part of German society anymore. They're not allowed to take holidays in this resort. I've added in then a bit of an example, some background knowledge, factual knowledge about the KDF who run the holiday resort. The Strength Through Joy programme proclaims they were free of Jews. It's a reward scheme and it regularly used to promote the hard work of Aryan Germans in propaganda. Now I'm going to have a go at explaining the purpose, and as I say, this automatically will take me into the top band of marks if I do this well. The purpose of the sticker is to promote the Nazis' anti-Semitic views and create a clear dividing line between Aryan Germans who were workers building up Germany and Jews who were portrayed as lazy parasites in Nazi propaganda. So that last bit in purple there, those couple of sentences at the end, that is what's pushed me into the top band of marks. Because I've also linked it to a feature in the source in the early part of the answer, that paragraph alone would get me right into that top band of marks. Okay, and finally, question 8 or 9. This is very similar to the other exams that you have done, America, People's Health, and Elizabeth. The last question is an essay question. You will always get a choice of 2. Okay, so in this case, question 8 or 9 rather than 4 or 5. 8 or 9, we're looking for, to get into that top band of marks, 4 explain points. Okay. So in this case, we have got a question which says Hitler's position of total power by August 1934 was achieved through legal means. How far do you agree with this view of Germany between January 1933 and August 1934? It's so important on the Germany papers, just like any of them, but especially on Germany, that you're really, really careful with the years here. You can only talk about events up to 1934. So these were events from the first chapter of the course, okay, about how the Nazis take power. So don't talk about things that come later, like the terror tactics and the propaganda that come up in later chapters. The key word here is legal means, okay? So our answer needs to be planned out beforehand. Don't just go straight in writing it. Think about what you're actually going to include. You're being asked your opinion and you need to be clear if you agree or disagree with the statement. I would have that as your very first sentence. And again, if we look at the mark scheme, it's 4 explain points will get us into the top band of marks. Point, evidence, explain. That will get us into the top band of marks. It's important that you do both sides of the argument though. So it can just be 1 point on one side of the argument, 3 points on the other, or you can do it more balanced and do 2 on each side. What is also worth pointing out is that just 1 explain point on this answer can get you 9 out of the 18 marks. So if you're somebody who's going for a grade 4 or a grade 5, 1 really well explained paragraph in this question will get you half marks. That will be enough to get you towards that grade 5. So for example here, I've just given you some things that we could include. So legal methods on the left-hand side in the agree, non-legal methods on the other side in the disagree. I'm highlighting here 4 paragraphs that I could do. I'm going to agree by talking about the Enabling Act, which I'm going to do on the next slide. Then the other part of my answer, I could talk about things like the Reichstag fire and the banning of political parties, use of concentration camps such as Dachau in the early months of Nazi rule. So my answer then, just point, evidence, explain. So my point, Hitler uses some legal methods to achieve total power. For example, the passing of the Enabling Act that granted him the power to make laws without a vote. Evidence to explain this, well, it's done legally as members of the Reichstag from several different parties vote for this law. 444 members vote for it, only 94 against. Now my explanation, well, how does this help him gain power through legal means? He used the democratic system to award himself additional powers. This is against the backdrop of the Reichstag fire, where many politicians feared a revolution was underway, a communist revolution was underway. However, the vote came after the arrest of communist politicians and with SA guards intimidating other politicians. Okay, so point, evidence, explain. That's all we need in this final question. The more explain paragraphs you do, the higher up the mark scheme you get. But as I say, 1 explain paragraph like this will get you half marks. Hopefully that's been useful as a quick guide as to how to answer the Germany questions. If you're thinking more that you need more help with the content and the information, remember, if you look elsewhere on the YouTube channel, there's information for each chapter, each section of all 4 modules that you have still to do in the exams this summer. Thank you very much.